Yes, so first we'll come to, step by step. Yes. So what is karma? What is bad? Let's start from there. What would you call as bad? When we say that, bad things happen, what is bad? Is death bad? Let's take an extreme example. Is it bad, really speaking? Very impartially look at it. Don't look at it from a personal. Is death bad? Why it is not bad? You have to give reasons. Why it is not bad? Because it's the beginning of another life. You take the law of, so death is not bad. It is our reaction to death which makes it appear bad. Why? Because I'm attached to it. It is my attachment that makes it appear as a disaster. But in itself, it's a complete organ transplant done free of cost. What if somebody deep within wanted a kind of life but could not lead it and leaves the body and comes back? Look at from the wisdom point of view. Isn't that much better? Okay, then what else is bad? I had a lot of money and it suddenly one day it was swindled. Is it bad? Again, there is that story of this empress. Someone broke a nice mirror that she was using every day. It was a very rare kind of mirror. Those days, made in China, when it was good mirror, huh? Not like today made in China. So it broke because, the slave girl broke it. So she was very afraid that this queen is going to punish me. So she goes to the queen and says, Rani, Shishaye Chin Shikast, the wonderful mirror from China, it is broken. So the empress says, Khub shud, very good. Samane khud bini shikast. That which used to flatter my ego every day, God has broken it. It's the way you look at it. So first of all, this idea of this, what is called in yoga, duality. Good and bad, pleasure and pain are born of an ignorant conception of life. They are given to us. They have their purpose in ignorance. But they are born of ignorance. Divine is not interested in giving pain and pleasure because he is in state of unity. But in duality, which is born out of ego is an angle of looking at life. So they're in preferences. Preferences bring in attachments. Attachment brings in pleasure and pain when things happen according to your preferences. So obviously the wisdom doesn't operate like that, but that's my understanding. That why. And based on my understanding, I throw upon the divine human conceptions. Why would he give me pain? Well, because he's a fair guy, just guy. So I must have done some bad deed. Just imagine, for the divine, we are not other than him. If your hand, if somebody's finger has an abscess, you give a little nick to take out the pus. Are you doing bad or punishing the finger because it touched something and hence got an abscess? Or you are relieving the finger? So from the divine perspective, we are not other. See, this is the conception of divine which didn't exist in Indian thought. Let me put in, this is not Indian conception of the divine. And the mother says, Sri Aurobindo also had to struggle against it. She had to struggle against it because we place divine as somebody out there who is busy fellow, and there is some Mr. Chitragupta and his company who are busy with all his computers, supercomputer, all the time noting everything. Third thing, what really is action, karma? Is it the deed or the motive? Which is more important? Motive. Where do motives come from? Motives arise from the state of consciousness in which we are in. So, if you look at it like this, karma is a machinery for evolution and progress. When I do things, when I'm in a state of consciousness where I'm pretty lower down the scale and I do something, now I have a certain motive which is natural to that state of consciousness. That motive leads to certain consequences because I've acted in ignorance. I put my finger in fire because I didn't know. So my finger burns. Is it a punishment or is it a learning? It's a learning. Now, why this learning is there? Is it so that I stop putting my finger in the fire? No, because what have I learned? It's not that fire burns, but fire has the property to burn. See, learning itself is very different. Fire burns, stay away. But fire has the property to burn. So next step will be what? If it can burn, instead of my finger, how about burning something which is by burning get purified? There is a deep meaning behind it. I'll just come to that. So it's the same energy which is harming you, can, if conserved, it can help you. That's what in yoga is called as purification. The same thing which is burning carries within itself the capacity of purifying. Okay? So, but first step is when it burns. Next step is you understand it as a property to burn. For example, I'll ask a question. Is passion good or is it bad? Is desire good or is it bad? At a certain stage of evolution, desire comes naturally. Passions, people are driven by passion. After some time they discover, now imagine a person who has discovered, he is very passionate and discovered that this passion, if it's not controlled and directed, it can burn my own house. And this passion, one begins to turn towards something much more, passion for the divine work upon earth. Compare this with somebody who has no passion. Which is a better state? Passion. So it's a step. Without that, you are a clod. So this is how evolution takes place. In the beginning, that energy is given, we play with it. Now that energy we transmit. It's not that we do karma incidentally. There is only one karma, one power which operates. This is the fundamental principle. But when it enters into the channel, it gets distorted. The divine energy comes. Let's put it now step by step. Divine energy enters into me. And I feel, very nice. I am the doer. So it is okay, play this game. You are the doer. So I do things to satisfy my own selfish ends. Divine energy says, okay, fine. So what it does next level is I begin to discover that, well, this is not what I want. So you begin to expand, grow, widen. Till a point comes when you discover, oh my God, if I were to let this energy do what it has come to do, to fulfill itself in me through her own means and processes, then I experience the maximum possibility that the divine will and the divine energy carries within itself. Otherwise, I have directed it towards small little petty ends. That's why we are knotted people, or the 7 knots, the chakras. Otherwise, all the time there is only one power, which is infinite power, infinite consciousness. Why is it not given? Because we are not ready to handle it. But a time comes when we become ready through this schooling process. And then we discover that no, I'm not here to just ask, like a beggar for small little pleasure and pain, little joys. Then this infinite energy begins to pour into the human vessel. And then we discover, oh my God, this fire which was burning, what I thought divine is punishing me, no. This fire which was burning is actually purifying me. So the perspective changes. All right. So, second part, that last bit of your question, which is implied within it, that we begin to become aware that, there is a punishment because something was done in my life. Tell me one thing honestly. In this world, there have been all kinds of theories. One is our karma theory, you are punished. There are religions in which there is the theory that if you do an action, God will on the last day, you are going to get terribly punished. Tell me, whoever has ever stopped doing things because of the fear of punishment? Real speaking, people don't do things because something within them tells them, and that is the true growth. To not do something because you will be punished, is that a better state, or because you have grown to a point where you don't want to do it because it is something not to be done, which is a higher state? So reward and punishment is at a very early level of consciousness. Perhaps human beings are not ready to learn and grow, so be afraid of God. Okay? But as we grow, we discover He is only love. And we need to, do things not because we are afraid, isn't it? Imagine that in a society, people follow all the rules because they are afraid of being punished. And a society where they very naturally do it because it's the right thing to be done, which is a higher and better state. Isn't it? The answer is very obvious. So there is a stage of development when this idea that there is karma, punishment, reward is, necessary for a certain kind of humanity. How much it changes, it's a different thing altogether. Human beings find their ways to pluck pleasure out of the sap of sin. Everybody knows it. They will find their ways. They will justify. They will say, no, it doesn't happen. It's not true. 100 ways. And yet that is a stage of our very early stage of schooling. It is not the highest truth. Even if such a thing were to exist, if at all, it won't be the highest truth. So God neither punishes nor forgives. Whom will He forgive? He is the only doer. So karma is what? There is only one power which is flowing into millions and billions and trillions of channels. It is that power which makes the Jupiter spinning through heaven. It's that power which fashions a curl. It's that power which smiles. It's that power which laughs. That power which slays. That power which endures. Only one power. There is no two powers. But each one has the choice to be made how one uses that power as it enters into it. And that choice needs discernment and knowledge. First, one has to grow into knowledge. That's why. And then you handle. When you don't grow into knowledge, then that power overrides you. And when we grow into knowledge, then there is the master. So in the beginning, that power overrides us. So when we have not grown into this true knowledge, not book knowledge, the soul is very like a chinna baby, small little baby. So nature drives it. Wherever, nature takes you, the soul is going. But then the soul, where is she taking us? To grow in terms of who we really are. When we have grown, then nature says, you are my Lord. I was preparing you to reach this point. Now you are my master. And in this story of the soul and nature, a lot of hints. When in a relationship, if both people try to affirm and assert themselves, how long is it going to last? Anybody's guess. Now, when one person gives oneself, starts by that process, unless the other person is a completely, gone case, after some time the person begins to give. So the giver becomes later on the master. Very naturally, very spontaneously. That's the way of love. And it's so true in life in general. So when we act under the impulsion of a narrow state of consciousness, inbuilt within it is suffering. Not because somebody is punishing me, and it's not after life. God doesn't believe in a post-mortem salvation. It's instantaneous. Do something which is very selfish. You see how even the face twists. You can see it from the face and say it twisted. Something inside twists, turns. You have the wealth, but you have lost the joy. Okay, now wealth, nothing wrong with wealth. I'm just giving an example. Whereas there is the other state where you have acted in a state of wideness and generosity. Mother gives this beautiful example. It's from her own life. She went to watch opera in a theater. And she was sitting in front and there's another person sitting behind, and she noticed that this person is striving because he's, unable to see. So she just gently slipped into the chair like this so that he could see. She says, now she's not able to see it that well. but she experienced the great joy in her own being because you have extended your consciousness. And this is an experiment we all can try. So, reward punishment is not, it's a theory as good as anybody else, but it is not even philosophically sustainable. Imagine a God who is busy punishing and rewarding. In human beings, which is a greater quality? Punishing and rewarding, or compassion and understanding? Which is a greater quality? If human beings believe that this is a greater quality, imagine God being inferior to human beings who is judging you. So you may ask one question: why did Krishna allow all these Kauravas to die? Because that is compassion. You know how? How is Rama's action compassion when Ravana is killed? There's a very interesting little narrative how the divine conceives. We misread the scriptures and bring our own meaning into it. So when Rama is asked by Kaushalya Mata, so you killed Ravana? What does he say? He says, Mahapandit, Mahabalshali, Mahashiv Bhakt, शिव तांडव स्त्रोत का रचयिता, वेदों का ज्ञाता, रावण अपने ही अहंकार से मर गया. उसके अहंकार ने उसको मार डाला. Now it was Rama's grace that he didn't let Ravana continue even more further damage to his own body. See, when people act sometimes, so that's why when Shri Krishna lets Kansa be killed, kills Kansa, not lets Kansa be killed, and lets Arjuna kill a host of people in the army. What was he doing? It was his grace and compassion, freeing them from this scourge. So when, and that's very interesting, in Mahabharata you see it. Why does Krishna go and tell Karna to switch over sides? He doesn't say in so many words, but he says, you are the eldest Pandava, if you come, you'll become the king. So people, say, he was playing diplomacy, he was trying to change, but look at Karna, he stood his ground. Isn't it? But look at it from Shri Krishna's point of view. He knows that Karna is a fallen angel. In his origin, he is a guy capable of genuine goodness. He is trying to save him from the scourge of ignominy that is going to follow him. The same thing, Bhishma being a Karma Yogi, tries to save Karna. He was not, you will not fight. You think Bhishma didn't know that when Krishna is on the other side and Arjuna, there is going to be the victory? They were all trying to protect this fellow. But he was driven by a misguided idea of virtue. Hence, he had to meet an end. Why in this way? Very simply, imagine, anyways, Karna had to die. Imagine dying in a straight fight with Arjuna. He said, okay, I'll give you at least this much honor that you didn't die in a straight fight. You were dying when you were on the ground. So at least people will say, acha tha. So when we look at the actions of the divine, even when we, in an action like that, he is actually liberating us. It's out of compassion that he is acting. In all his actions, there is compassion and love. I'll finish this with this small little story. There is a movie, Chitralekha. I don't know whether you have seen it or not. In Chitralekha, there is the story of a sannyasi and a Karma Yogi. Karma Yogi is a prince. And there is this courtesan whom the prince loves, but the courtesan falls in love with the sannyasi. Not love that way, love wala love, but guru wala love. Beautiful love. But this sannyasi, who has, this is the problem with sannyasis, very dangerous people, I must say. Because all the impulses they are harboring inside, they have suppressed. I'm talking of even the genuine sannyasis, because they have, and when they interact with the world, they don't know. Mother has also spoken about them. They are not authentic sannyasi. Swami Vivekananda is an exception. But he is a strange sannyasi. He can go in anybody's house and live. He is a true sannyasi in the real sense of the word. But then he falls in love with her as a man to a woman. And then he realizes that he has fallen in his yoga and he wants to commit suicide. So as he's going towards the river Ganges, a very beautiful ending. Suddenly a cobra comes and bites him. And he dies of that. But before death he says, Lord Shiva, you are so compassionate. You prevented me from the double ignominy of now committing suicide. So you came and freed me from another sin which I was going to commit. So even the seeming punishments in the Mother Sri Aurobindo says about Maheshwari, even her rejections are a postponement. Even her punishments are a grace. Because there is the balance of justice which is called Nyaya. Very often people ask, there's blind forgiveness. So Indian thought there is not like blind forgiveness. Forgiveness is a virtue, but it's not blind forgiveness. Why? Because Nyaya is also there. Supposing somebody does some harm to me personally, okay? Individually I can forgive him. But supposing this is a person with a tendency, supposing a snake, there is a story told about a sadhu and he is bit by a that bichu. And he wants to rescue it again. Again he is bit by the scorpion. He wants to, and the sadhu says, scorpion has its own nature to bite me, but I have the nature of the sadhu to rescue him. Now this is half the truth. Okay. The sadhu has forgotten that you are saving a scorpion which can bite 5 people and they may be killed. So sometimes it is good to let the scorpion go through his own fate. You understand that when the divine vision acts, it acts with compassion. Even killing is a grace. One must understand the widest picture. So in the divine vision, all is compassion and grace. For us, we may look at it from a limited perspective and think it is reward and punishment. But everything that the divine acts is always invariably driven by compassion and love. Sometimes to strengthen us, to steel us. He may make us go through the furnace. We may think it's punishment. No. People used to say this in ashram. When you go, you say, I want to serve you, mother. I'm very happy. I have come to serve you. You are put in the furnace or in the washing machine. Mother, where am I? I am feeling so disoriented. This fabric is getting torn. Yes. First stage. And you are inside the washing machine. You cannot even push the stop button from inside. So all so-called punishment is nothing but a purificatory ritual. Do it consciously. You don't have to go through this process. Don't do it. Nature will do it for you. But that's a little more painful process. Okay? Yeah. Okay.
Can you explain us how to look like a sakshi?
How to look like a?
Sakshi.
Sakshi, yes.
Because there is a sakshi inside us. The divine is a sakshi observer. So, but when we look the world, we get attached.
Yes, so basically it is that only, that when we look at, first thing we must realize the step towards being a sakshi, witness. The first thing we need to realize is that appearances are not reality. That's why they are appearances. And if we start believing appearances to be real, that we'll never arrive at true knowledge. So when we wait, many times when you look at things the way they unfold, wait for the pura picture to be over. So that's why to immediately rush. You see, when we believe our surface consciousness is all, then we get tied and we are, thrown by all kinds of forces. So when we learn to step back, the way to practice it is, Let the mind, you see, divine as the Sarva Sakshi is a ultimate. But first step is, there is a part of the mind which is buddhi. Draw your consciousness in the buddhi and look at whatever is happening. See how important it really is. How much it is really going to impact me in terms of my higher goals, deeper goals. So then you see that 99% of the things have really very little importance. And this buddhi itself will tell us that it's not worth getting into, For instance, one of the things I'll tell you, winning over somebody in debate, is it important? Absolutely. So, it's not about who is right or who is wrong. It's about a waste of energy. So, unless it's so important that, based on that, your fate and the fate of the nations depend, you have your own conviction, but you don't have to get into an argument. It's not needed at all. It's not going to, nobody ever gets converted by an argument. Let me tell you this very frankly. Even husbands and wife cannot convert each other. You can't even convert a child by arguing. So it's a waste thing. So you realize that, instead of losing yourself in that discussion, step back. Similarly, food. Oh, it's so horrible. It's okay. Odd day. You are going on the road. You didn't, as that story goes, you had not jumped the red light, and you were fined. Now, so many times you jumped and you were not fined. So, it's okay. Life, these are not things of real importance. You see, mankind suffers from this disease. One is to give too much importance to things that have little or no importance. And the second is not giving importance to things which are of true eternal importance. So, we have to reset our value system. And when we do that initially by the help of buddhi, after some time it will get into the system. So automatically we won't react to every passing appearance. Then yes, we can begin to deeper separate the Purusha from Prakriti. The entire field of nature, one learns to separate. First the buddhi, that's why the Gita gives this process very beautifully. The mind, the senses drawn into the mind into the buddhi into the self, into the greater self. That's how it has to be done. So first is the buddhi, and then it draws into the greater self by inner concentration, inwardness. Even while we are driving, walking, conversing, we concentrate on the inner self, on the divine presence inside. Then automatically the separation will come. Initially it will be difficult, but after some time we'll start taking rasa in that. After you have tasted Rajbhog, who will want to eat the other mithai? Yes, children's?
I had a question. You said that there's like an innate will to be happy as a child. So sometimes when you're growing, you have a bunch of different things that take away from that happiness, or like things that sort of block you from feeling that.
So what happens as a child?
So why? Sorry, but like, how do you make it less of like an oscillating feeling where sometimes you're
Yes.
happy?
So first we must understand the reason. So the reason is, when we are a child, the mind has not stepped in. Okay? What does the mind do? It brings concept. Happiness means this. It starts defining. God means this. This is what is called in the Bible as the fruit of knowledge. You taste the apple. Before Adam and Eve had tasted the apple, or whoever tasted it first, that's not relevant. They were happy guys. Okay? They tasted, and so they fell from the joy of paradise. But then this is a stage through which one must pass. So when one is a child, one is not, all these mental conceptions, ideas about life, what it should be, what it should not be, are not there. That's why you see in animal world where the mind does not come in. Even in the tribals you see, They're happy. There is a whole tribe, Jarawa tribe in Andamans. They live still like nobody can, go and even interview them because they'll shoot arrows and you're a dead person. They don't like contact with the outer world. They live the way they are. No TV, nothing. The mind has not come and told them, you have missed a favorite program. Okay. So this is one stage in which people live. Tarzan. Okay. Till Tarzan walked into New York City. Okay, so this is one state, but obviously that is an unconscious state in which you are naturally happy. You have to arrive at conscious delight. So, what is that instrument in us which begins to make us conscious? It's the mind. You see the paradox. So, the same mind which will take you step by step towards that consciousness where you are consciously in delight starts by telling you, look here, become conscious. So it becomes, then the concepts come in. So as the child grows up, human child, the mind starts playing. And when the mind starts playing, it starts also fooling around and fooling us. So when a child till 10 years of age is the innocent, wonderful, chubbly, bubbly baby. 10 to 20, I know it all. What do you people know? Mama, Dad, I don't understand anything about anything. And then all of us go through it, nothing unusual. At 20, 21, 22, he begins to question if he is destined to grow, evolve beyond this initial stage. He begins to question. By the time he is 30, then he looks back, he has developed into a kind of adult. And then he has a much more balanced, saner view of things. This is a process. But in yoga, you go much beyond it. The entire mental apparatus, you realize that it cannot know. Look at the fallacy. Tell me one thing. Normally we believe with the mind we can know things, isn't it? That's ingrained within us. All the scientists say this, and they have all the forces they can command apparently. Can we know what is going to happen the next moment with certainty? That's the limit of our knowledge. It's like puncturing the bubble of knowledge. People make predictions, people do all kinds of things, there are big debates, but we don't even know the next step in front. Of course, we live with this belief that all is good. Okay, we'll meet tomorrow. That's okay. But if somebody asks, are you sure? See, that is the limit of mental knowledge. And yet it is needed at a stage of evolution. But when you realize that the entire mental apparatus and mechanism cannot really give me ultimate knowledge, the true knowledge, the comprehensive knowledge, I'm not just speaking about God knowledge, but knowledge about everything in this universe, then I begin to transcend the mind. That's when true knowledge begins. You quieten the mind. You again enter into the state of different spontaneity. Not the animal spontaneity, but spontaneity of the gods. So this is the stage of animal spontaneity, instincts where you are happy. Then there is the stage when you are going through happiness and sorrow because all these concepts have come in. Long, painful process. Then you are spontaneously in delight because intuitively you know the why, the wherefore of whatever is happening in life. Okay, so that's the answer to that. Yeah, just with.
I think you answered this previously in part, but before you were talking about how if you follow divine will, then you'll be affirmed about the path of decisions that you're making. But how do you know if you are following that path or not? I know you talk about knowledge.
You don't know. Let's start with this truth that we don't know. So what do? I don't know whether I am doing something which is the divine will or not. I don't know whether I am sitting here. It may even in your best of actions. Okay? I don't know whether I am sitting here and talking about is it divine or not, that I don't know, but I am just saying I may not know that whether the divine wants me to speak about himself or not. Apparently it looks very good, no? It's a good job. But How do you know that's what is the divine will? Well, one may not know. Let's put it like that. There are ways of knowing it, but let's say start with that one doesn't know. So what do I do then? Should I not act till I finally become aware of divine will? Now that's where the catch lies, that through action I'll become aware. Through action I'll grow in consciousness. So do I wait for the entire learning process? No, there is a simpler way. So I feel the impulsion, or I must be careful that I am not acting under a selfish drive. This much one should at least be aware. At least apparently it should not be a selfish, egoistic motive. That much one can be aware, isn't it? And then I offer it to the divine. I am going to speak. Okay? I don't know whether I am going to speak foolishly wise or wisely foolish. But let whatever I speak, let it be you who speaks through me. And even if I don't speak what I should speak, let at least people understand what you want them to understand. Now, when you offer your actions to the divine, then what will happen? There is a bond which is there. Bond is always there from the side of the divine, but it should be forced from our side. When we have done that, then even if the action is not in conformity to the divine will, that's where the question comes. The divine will do two things. One is use that action, however imperfect it is, for the greater good. And second, because now you have called in the action of the divine will is not devoid of wisdom, it is wisdom. It will make us aware through the action that what the divine wants of us. But if we don't act, we will not become aware at all. So that's why do the action in your highest. Try not to be selfish as best as one can. Try not to be driven by this urge that mera kya fayda hoga. Okay? Try not to be driven by instant gratification. These are few things one has to. And then after having done that, whatever is the action that one is going to do, offer it to the divine will and say that you be with me, you take care of all the rest. And then you will see that gradually one grows into consciousness, one grows into wisdom. It's a process. It's not like every time there is a bulb which will, oh, this is the divine will. No. One grows into that awareness where the divine will become self-evident. So that's the process. From ignorance towards knowledge. Okay, program.
In her question, don't you think that dharma plays the role? Like Krishna said, this is Pandava, okay, this is I'm on dharma.
Yeah. So that is about what dharma is. Dharma is in a broadest definition of dharma, is that which helps in the unfolding of the divine will. And dharma is also that which leads me towards the divine. That is dharma, the broadest definition. But if you try to fix dharma into mental rules and dogma, it fails. So Meera asked Tulsidas, my in-laws are wanting me to eat meat and become a Shakt. They are worshippers of Shakti, Kshatriyas. But I love Krishna, what should I do? You see, contrary dharma, both are right. She has gone wedded to a house of her own choice. She said yes, whatever it be. So to take care of husband and everything, it's a kind of dharma. There is another dharma where she feels drawn towards Krishna, and very naturally she cannot do these things. She doesn't feel like eating meat. What should she do? Tulsidas gives a very beautiful reply in a letter. And there he says, Bali Guru Tejo Vibhishan Bandhu Bharat Mahatari. He gives 3 examples from Ramayana. If you make dharma as a set of moral rules, then Vibhishan was Vidharmi, Bali was Vidharmi, Bharat was a Vidharmi. Rama, when he kills Bali, is Vidharmi. If you try to put dharma into a set of rules. But killing of Bali was important, necessary. Why? Because you had to open the line of monkey evolution towards humanity. Vali's logic is might is right. Sugriv is duplicate, but he is more inclined towards humanized nature. So Rama must kill Vali. This action of Rama shows about dharma. It's one of the best understanding of dharma comes when Vali asks this question to Rama. Samdarshi tab naam kahava. You are known to be Samdarshi. कहो नाथ मम काहे को मारा, मुझे क्यों मार दिया आपने, मैंने आपका कुछ नहीं किया था. If it was a question of tracking Ravana, you should have told me. I would have even gone and caught him. Why have you killed me? So then he starts explaining what is dharma, its sukshma roop. Outwardly, if you see the deed of Rama, it is adharma. How can you kill him? He doesn't even know. He has no enmity with you. But now look at it from Rama's perspective. Rama was not just looking for Sita. Rama was there to establish the reign of a mentalized, illumined mind. Human beings should act under a deeper, higher impulsion. He is there to fulfill the Raj Dharma of that time. He was there as a representative of Bharat. He doesn't once even call himself prince. He says, I am doing it on behalf of the king. So, he has seen that Vali had done a grave injustice and Sugriv has come and made a bond of friendship. So from both point of view, he must be with Sugriv. But he can't face Vali face to face. Not that he cannot face Vali, but Vali has a boon that half the energy of the other person, he will suck away if you fight. So Vali, you cannot beat him in any frontal fight. But look at the beauty of that whole episode. Yet, in a battle, there should be fair and just war. Do it. It's not just that, okay, I have hidden behind. There must be some fairness. You can't fight Vali face to face. Nobody can fight. Because any human being comes, he has this boon that he will suck away half the energy. So justice demands that there should be some kind of an equal fight, fair fight as it is called. So what does Rama do? Have you imagined why he shoots an arrow from 7 trees and not just hidden behind and shooting like this? Through the 7 trees, it's a very beautiful episode narrated. The arrow pierces the 7 trees and then hits Vali and he is killed. You know what is the point he was trying to make? With the prowess of my strength, I could kill you. He could have gone in front and just shot an arrow. But where is that display that it's an equal fight? Let me see. He's hiding behind, not hiding, from behind the 7 trees. So the arrow is thrust with such a force that it pierces the trees and hits Vali and he is killed. So there is a fairness in that he brings. He's not just hiding somewhere and shoots suddenly an arrow and poor fellow cannot see and he dies. So dharma, why does he kill? Because it helps in the unfolding. It's the future of the Vanara, which is a type of primitive humanity, depends upon which line the Vanara will take. If it takes the line of Vali, the Vanara may gravitate towards the Rakshasa and the Asura. If it takes the line of Sugriv, leaving aside the deeper symbol of Vanara and the Nar Rama, it takes the line of a more humanized humanity. So dharma is not a set of do's and don'ts and rights and wrong as is taught in the moral science lessons, putting a line here, this is good, this is bad. This is not there in Indian thought. Dharma is about individually and collectively the unfolding of the divine law in creation. So that's why Shri Krishna tells Arjuna why you should act. He takes away all the individual motives. First he tells, you are a Kshatriya, it's your Swadharma to fight, you may fall, it's okay, if you win, you have the Rajyam Samraddham. But very soon he starts moving further and further. Ultimately he takes away all the planks, supports, no desire offer your actions. So, Arjuna says, you first teach me about knowledge. Now you are saying act. You have taken away. There is no motive to act. Why should I act? Then he gives a very beautiful term. He says, Lok Sangrahart. To carry the march of humanity forward. It's not about you anymore. It was never about you. It was about what helps humanity grow and progress. So you must fight. In this fight, maybe your near and dear ones will be killed. See, this Gita is the perfect example. Whom is he called upon to kill? Should you kill your guru? No. Your grandsire? No. That's what Arjuna says. They are the people for whom one wins a war. And you are asking me to kill them? So dharma is not about an action but the deeper motive. See, this is the difference between Indian psychology and Western psychology, if I may say so. In the Western psychology, where there is Dehe Atma Bodh, the body is the self, there is great emphasis on action. Action is given a great emphasis in terms of whether it's. That's why people think, oh, there is war, it is bad, and then you continue to do the same thing. In the Eastern psychology, the stress is on the motives. It's not about the action. What is the motive? The motive is selfish. Then even if you have turned the other cheek, when you see what a great adharma it is. You say that, okay, I will turn my other cheek to be slapped. What are you doing? You are allowing the forces of darkness to take complete control over whole range of humanity. That's why Gandhi is wrong. He is not in dharma. He is doing adharma. When he stops the Hindus from going ahead in Noakhali, he is doing something which is adharma. Why is he doing it? Because he has a name. I'm saying very openly. He will make a mark in history. See, paragon of non-violence. That's exactly what he told. That if the Hitler comes, though he wrote a letter to Hitler, I appreciate your love for country, but what you are doing, some of the deeds that I have come to know are very monstrous. But the advice he gave here was that if he comes, you let him come, don't oppose him. But don't let your soul be taken over by him. And the advice went to what extreme? If somebody is raping a woman, she should not resist. You know why? Because he will exhaust his evil tendency through this. So you are doing a favor to the man, double favor. Is it dharma? It's a gross adharma. What should be dharma? Hold the hand, resist the slayer. It's not just about you, it's about everybody. You are letting a man with a tendency, a murderous instinct to just go scot-free. And you speak about forgiveness. Okay, you have, people will regard you probably as a saint because there's so many misconceptions. But you have let a man continue with massacring others. That's why it is the adharma. So dharma is to be understood only in the context of what leads an individual and the collective humanity towards evolution. Now, what about when you are slaying the slayer, holding his hand? What about you? Your evolution? Well, that's where Krishna says, within you, you should not carry the bhava of ahimsa, bhava of dambha. Even when you are slaying, it should be an act of compassion, love for others, humanity, fighting for the sake of humanity. You should do with that idea, not, oh, he's my personal enemy, I am going to sort out. No ahimsa, no dambha, I am the slayer, look, I am such a big warrior. None of these things should be inwardly, you should be free from all this. And then sin does not incur. So that is the whole psychology of dharma. Dharma is about inner motive. If inwardly there is hinsa and outwardly you are resisting, you are releasing forces in this creation which are very dangerous. Sri Aurobindo gives that example. A man who is boiling inside with anger but outwardly is staying, he is releasing much more dangerous forces, and sometimes it's compassion and mercy to stay the hand of the assassin and tell him to cry halt. It's much more even for the other man, because you're preventing him from, being on a rampage. So dharma is all about the evolutionary journey towards whatever helps. There are no standard fixed rules. It's about whatever at a given point of time helps us to individually and collectively to evolve towards a greater state. That's what is dharma. Yes.
If one can understand, if one can apprehend the supramental force within the mind stream, what is the necessity for waiting for evolution?
Supramental force is the force behind the entire process of evolution. Why there is evolution is, see, it's like a seed which is planted, it has to grow. So this is the one part. What is inconscience? It is the superconscious which has become inconscient. So always, supramental is not something magically new. It is what is there in creation. Because of the supermind, things eventually don't go into chaos. Let's take an example. Example is, Sri Aurobindo deals with it very beautifully in the chapter in Life Divine on the cosmic indeterminates. What makes a seed grow into a tree? Sounds very simple. Genes. What pushes the genes to determine that the gene or a seed of a mango will grow into a mango tree? There is a compulsion in creation. So supramental consciousness, the omniscience and omnipotence. Supermind is the omniscience and omnipotence of the divine. This is compelling creation to move in a certain direction. This direction, compulsion, all this comes when you enter into space and time. But if you go outside space and time, there is no compulsion. Then there is a direct supramental. But it's not acting on anything. It's in the supramental world as it is existing in the supramental plane, there is no compulsion. This is the spontaneous manifestation. But in time and space, there will be evolution. And wherever there is evolution, there will be something which will be left behind, something which has to move forward. That will bring in conflict, that will bring in tussle, that will bring in fight of various kinds. Because something which was valid and relevant at one point of time, when a baby talks in, at least in Indian mothers, I'm sure probably everywhere, when a baby says, give me water and says, you say not pani, but lalula, something, he says in a very babble of a child, mama, oh, so sweet. When the same baby does it at 5-year-old, mama is alarmed. At 8, she takes to a psychiatrist, what's wrong with the child? So, evolution happens like that at first step, you evolve like a little baby. That time you are holding the hand of Papa. Papa, take me in the lap. You are taken into lap. And Mama feeds the child. But when the child grows up, the child has to leave this stage when he was being fed by the mother and carried by the Papa in the lap. He has to leave. If it doesn't leave, any good Mama and Papa will tell the child no. No Mama and Papa will be happy if the child at 20 is feeding from Mama's hands. It will be alarming. So evolution implies stages and steps. It is this that creates hierarchy. Hierarchy is the truth that humanity has forgotten. A kind of thought, all is good, all is same, all is equal. There is nothing more foolish than that. In essence, all is one. In essence. But if you try to translate it, Indian thought recognized it. If there is evolution, there will be hierarchy. Can we say that the child and the old man are the same? Somebody will say, what do you mean? In a sense, they are same, but in terms of manifestation, there is a difference. So in manifestation, you have, what we call as evolution is manifestation of the supramental through time and space, through forms. So we use the word evolution. That's an ignorant term, but we can use that word. But all evolution from the divine point of view is a manifestation of the divine consciousness, which through the supramental is none else but the Creator's consciousness, through the supermind is pushing things, compelling things to disclose what is hidden behind them. What is hidden is the divine. So that supermind is helping to disclose. If there is a resistance, as inevitably there would be, because when you move from stage 1 to stage 2, stage 1 will resist. So it takes the form of a struggle and a tussle. But through all this conflict, it is taking towards the divine disclosure. That's why Sri Aurobindo speaks of Heraclitus, he quotes, war which is the father of the universe. At a mini level, we all undergo conflict. It's the miniature war. So in time and space, you will have to have steps and stages. Outside time and place, there will be no steps and stages, direct action. Right now, the supermind cannot act directly because it's like, it's almost like saying that now we have discovered solar energy, It is the cheapest form of energy. It's the future of energy. And yet, to have the solar energy, we need panels. Sun can directly give us energy, but we have to have panels which will receive it and it will correctly use it, transmit it. So the human system right now is not ready for the direct action of the supermind. So the human system has evolved under pressure of the forces of ignorance. So it has reached this point where it can perceive the supermind, conceive the supermind to an extent, maybe glimpse the supermind through the psychic door. But the direct action of the supermind on the human system, it will blow off. So the human body, the human mind have to prepare itself stages till it can directly receive the action and express it freely and openly. That's why there is this process. Yeah.
If the manifestation of the supramental force can be apprehended within one's own mind stream, then what is the point of waiting for a superman if we are malleable enough to evolve?
That is the Superman. So Superman is not some magical. If somebody can receive the supramental consciousness within and express it, if, that's a very big if underlined 10 times, if one can do it, no, understood. So if one can do that, then that's what by definition is the Superman. But there is another thing after Superman is the supramental being. So the difference is when inwardly consciousness, the inner consciousness, the mind, not only the mind but vital, and even maybe the physical consciousness to an extent, can come in contact with the supermind, receive the supermind, and to an extent manifest it, to the extent that's possible. One is a supermind, the consciousness is changed, it's no more human. I mean, by definition, we use this word, na, Rakshas jaisa hai. Even, to a human being, we say he is like an animal. He is like a pig. He is like a cow. He is like a, asuric being. Why we say? Because body is of a man, but the consciousness is of an animal. So that's where I spoke about in Indian thought. So whereas, in Indian thought it was understood that the body may be human, but man may be an animal like, Pashu like, he may be like a monkey, maybe like a Rakshasa, Asura, Deva, 10 types of humanity. But where we don't understand evolution, we say, no, all are human beings, all are same. Because we don't understand that. So if somebody can inwardly the consciousness has changed by the inner consciousness becoming more and more supramental, it means that one is in direct contact with truth. One knows the truth, sees the truth, acts the truth, speaks the truth, feels the truth spontaneously is a law of his being. Then he is no more a human by definition. He has a human body, but he is not human. He is a Deva Manav. But then there is or a Divya Manav. But he has to go one step further, and that's where the final stage of supramental transformation of the body comes in, that even when he has all this, the bodily instrument is not yet ready to manifest it to perfection. I may have all the wisdom inside supramental truth, and supposing I have to express it. You see how Sri Aurobindo's classic example, whole night from 10 o'clock till 6, he was expressing, yet the body after a point of time, because it's yet a human body, it will need some rest. It's not ready. But supermind doesn't take rest. So ideally the supramental body, the body should reach that point where it will continuously keep on expressing the divine truth. So mother says something very interesting. She says the body will change future words, not fall backwards. So that's why there is death. Consciousness is advancing, body cannot hold. So it starts disintegrating after a point. But if the body starts undoing itself future words, it's undoing, but it is moving towards a better and better, higher and higher state, then there will be no death. That's what the mother calls as the deathless state, which is different from immortality. You don't die. Why? Because, not that because there won't be change, but this change is continuously following the inner movement. So becoming is following the movement of the being, the universal movement. Right now we cannot. So then the next step after Superman is the supramental being, whose body also will be transmuted to perfectly manifest that divine consciousness. But if one can have this glimpse, not just the glimpse, but can completely, the consciousness is supramentalized, which means total freedom from ego, complete plasticity, as you rightly said, total equanimity. So then, by definition, is no more a human being. One may not call him a human, doesn't matter. One may call him a human being. Doesn't matter if one calls him a Superman or not, because that's, see, these definitions are necessary to for mental concept. The Superman will not call that I am a Superman, nor will it be visible always to the outer eye, because we see appearances. So it look like, okay. You see how Sri Aurobindo had to say cryptically. He says, because people would write to him in 2 days, if the reply doesn't come, then they would, you had a Sunday, why you didn't reply? He says, if you were to see the heap of correspondence on my table and the many other things that I have to do, even the heart of a hard rock-like disciple will melt. And at one point he says very passingly that if you just see outwardly 10 to 6 he was, writing, and just the outer life, you will be compelled to at least understand that, because people were throwing doubts, that there is something of that divine element, very with full all humility. Passingly he mentions. But still people saw the outward human. So they asked this question, Are Sri Aurobindo passed away? So as if the entire thing that he spoke rested upon the physical transmutation. Physical transmutation cannot be individual, because that is the law of evolution. That's where the whole catch lies. That's why the mother said, so physical transformation will be, but it will be as more and more human consciousness are transformed inwardly. And the Superman will find the way to change the body, but it has to be at least a certain number of people. That's what is called as the tipping point. So there are a number of monkeys striving, struggling, then there is a transmutation. Not one monkey suddenly becomes human. So that's where the last stages will. Sri Aurobindo said, he has spoken of a few thousand years. He never promised supramental physical transformation in one go. He never. In fact, there are letters where he says that is the last crowning achievement. What will be done, can be done, and will be done is the supramental consciousness will start manifesting upon her. That's what he had promised and which he fulfilled. That's why the mother said the things that were promised were fulfilled. But the physical transmutation is bound to take time, because it will need a certain number of human beings. So that is the next step. First the Superman, then the supramental race or the new race. Okay, yeah.